these two here that you can choose from. We'll be having a raffle. Mr. Justin Collins from the Office of Student Engagement, Diversity and Inclusion should be putting a link in the chat for you guys to be able to sign up for the raffle. And it'll be 15 people at random will be selected to win. You can win multiple times. So if you won last time, that's amazing. We even have the list of people who won last time. So congratulations to everybody who won last time. So don't feel like you can't win again. There are 4 masks in total, so hey, try and win them all if you can. And next, we will be having opening remarks by Mr. Arthur Breeze, who is Geisinger's Director of Diversity and Inclusion for Human Resources.
So good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Shake your head so I know.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Welcome to our second program here at Geisinger for our Black History program. Again, I thank everyone. And I have, in fact, had the opportunity to hear Glennis John make her remarks during the rising of the Pan-African flag in Scranton, and I was very inspired by her words. And in fact, I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but I also stumbled upon a video of her making suggestions for books for Black history. So I'm so proud to have her participate in our Black History Month program. I'm also elated to the entire BOLD Education Committee for putting together this robust programming. And I believe, in fact, that the more that we learn about each other's history and experiences, maybe one day that we won't even have to have Black History Month, but our multicultural education will be so intertwined, which African-American history is American history. And so just a little bit, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but a little bit about our Black Outreach Leadership Development. Employee Resource Program is our goal to provide support for Geisinger Africans in the diaspora, hires and serve as a representative in recruitment and retention efforts as they relate to people who are from African descent. BOLD has accomplished a number of things by its mission, by sharing data and stories that include experiences related to diversity, inclusion, equity, social justice, and belongingness. And in fact, that is our goal in the diversity, equity, and inclusion area, for everyone to be able to bring their whole selves to work. When you get an opportunity, you could read about a little bit about our objectives and our call to action in terms of the subcommittees that we have. I would encourage anyone on this phone or anyone in the Geisinger system to join BOLD and also to enjoy any of our additional employee resource groups. So will you go to the next slide for me, Richard? Here is our programming for the month. And again, it's 2021, our Black History Month events. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Sapp, Dr. McBride, for being the co-chairs and giving us daily inspiration through your leadership. Of course, today we will hear from Glennis John. Our next program will be Wednesday, February 10th, which we will have the opportunity to hear from our very own Dr. McBride and Dr. Rhonda Daly, who will talk about race, culture, and generational trauma in medicine.
Thank you so much, Mr. Priest, for all of the information. And next up, I'm going to have Ms. Priscilla Cabral, Geisinger's BOLD Education Subcommittee. She's going to introduce our speaker of the day.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Priscilla. I work for Geisinger Health Plan, and I am a member of BOLD and one of the co-chairs for the Education Subcommittee. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker today, Glennis John. Glennis is the founder of Black Scranton Project, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, local heritage initiative, and public history venture dedicated to archiving and celebrating African American history of Scranton and of Northeast Pennsylvania. Glennis is also a first-year doctoral student studying 19th and 20th century African American history at Rutgers University, a native Scrantonian, local historian, sociologist, artist, documentarian, and advocate. Glennis spends a lot of time researching Scranton in an attempt to piece together narratives of the Black community. She is proud to shift local perspective on culture, inclusion, representation, and history. For Glennis, passions and projects are indistinguishable from each other. She received her BA and MA in sociology at St. John's University, highlighted in the March 2020 issue of Happenings magazine as one of the most influential women in Northeast Pennsylvania, and NEPA's Business Journal's Top 20 Under 40 Young Business Professionals 2019 honoree. I also had the pleasure of hearing Glennis speak on Saturday's Pan-African flag raising, so I'm sure she'll have a very encouraging speech for us today as well. Please help me welcome her by using your Zoom reactions. And now I'm happy to turn the program over to her, Glennis, with her presentation on Black infrastructure, Black security, and the maintenance of community integrity. Glennis, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure to partner with Geisinger. It's always an honor to work with the students here locally and the medical students. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you all for the fabulous introduction. It's always nice. The flag raising ceremony on Saturday was amazing. Despite the freezing cold, we all kind of bared through it for the integrity and solidarity of African Americans. So for everyone that was out there, thank you all for being there. It was an amazing day, our second annual event doing that. And as Mr. Breeze had said before about the books that were just spotlighted, USA Today asked Black leaders in Pennsylvania what books they are reading and which ones are must reads for the community. And they asked me and I was like, cool. So I picked a few books. The first book on the list was Never Caught by Dr. Erica Armstrong Dunbar, who is actually going to be part of our Black History Month series next week, with partnered with the Scranton Public Library and Scranton Reads. Her book is called Never Caught. It's amazing. If you have a Scranton Public Library card, you can get a free copy and join the presentation. It should be amazing. Other books that I picked was All About Love by Bell Hooks and also Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. The last book on that list too is Slavery by Another Name by Sowande Mustaqim, and fabulous read. It changed my perspective on slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. So I highly recommend all those books once again. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and the things that I do a lot of work in the community. Apply pressure to the city of Scranton, apply pressure to the police department, apply pressure to the mayor to make sure that diversity and equity and inclusion are at the top of the list. I care about fair and equal housing. I care about the babies and the kids, Scranton School District students, making sure that they have the resources to succeed during this pandemic. So I do a lot of things in the community alongside of the historical work. So today, I wanted to introduce you all to some history. Before I jump in, how much time do I have to talk? Just so I know.
We said 40 minutes, but basically one, just so we have some time for Q&A.
Right, I'll keep it to like 25 minutes so we have enough time. Because I did want to give you guys a preview of a short video compilation series that I started called Uncommon Knowledge, and I would love to preview it with you all. So if we have time, I'll definitely get to that. It's just like 4-minute video clips about local Black history, because I'm working on presenting them with the community in a way that can be accessible and share them with the community. So hopefully in a few months, I'll find a way to present that so that they can be used in the classroom, they can be used in presentations with you all or wherever. But I just wanted to use spaces like this as an opportunity to preview it to friends and communities of the Black Scranton Project. So let me get my screen ready to be shared for this presentation. So today I wanted to talk about the Black vote and talking about the city of Scranton and how the Black community has built a foundation for what we have today. Because I think it's really important. Share this. I think it's really important that we think about and talk about and collect these stories in a way that really displays the Black community and the integrity of the Black community. So as part of our Black History Month series, this is our logo for this year. So I just started this presentation out with that. The Black Scranton Project, as you all know now, is a local nonprofit dedicated to sharing and archiving the African-American history of the Scranton area. So we do a lot of work. Black History Month is one of our most notable series. And so like I was saying before, this series that I had started is called Uncommon Knowledge. And basically I'm bringing to light some stories of Scranton's Black past that has been forgotten, and in a way that's digestible, in a way that is visually pleasing in this fast-paced social media world. That's kind of where I was thinking of in terms of that. So today I want to talk about the importance of the Black vote from a local perspective. So in the 1800s, I'm going to take you guys back to about the 1850s. So the kind of like the ending point of slavery, the boiling point to getting us to the Civil War. A lot of things were happening in Scranton at this time. We had a Black population of about 600 African Americans at this time living in the city of Scranton, a very tight-knit community. Most of them were living in the downtown area, if not all of them. They were working to build Bethel AME Church. At the time, Bethel AME just would meet congregations in some storefronts and stuff. But at this point, Black men in particular, but with women by their side, were very adamant about making sure that if you were eligible to vote, that you were voting. And at this time, most African Americans were registered Republicans and were voting for the Republicans because that was the side that was fighting to abolish slavery and work towards Black rights. So in the city of Scranton, the Black community here was rallying behind the Republican vote. They were all making sure that they were able to vote and were exercising their right. So at this point, men over the age of 21 were eligible to vote, African-American men included. So the Black voters here in the city of Scranton, the Black voters here in the city of Scranton, like I was saying before, were really, really adamant about making sure that we were exercising our rights. They would often create what was called the Keystone Republican Club. So they would go at different storefronts, at different spaces, and rally around certain campaigns, locally and national, whatever was happening. They were making sure that they were following policies, following politics, and were actually shifting a lot of the voting that was happening in the region. One thing that I find is really interesting is that the Keystone Republican Club had more than 150 colored or Black voters all around Lackawanna Avenue. Most African Americans were living down there. So the Keystone Republican Club had, I would say in this newspaper clipping is from like the 1915 decade. But around that time, there was at least 300 members of the Keystone Republican Club, including women. Even though for a certain amount of time, women couldn't vote, they were heavily active. Some names to note: George W. Brown. He was a Black leader in the city of Scranton. He was often organizing around political campaigns. He wanted to make sure that kids were being educated. He was also a business owner, so he was trying to help people become entrepreneurs. He was hiring people of color from across Scranton. And during this time, he was considered an equal opportunity employer. So he was hiring Irishmen, Germans, Lithuanians, whoever was able to do the job is who we would hire. He was a millionaire by today's standards. So he had a lot of money and a lot of wealth went back into the Black community. So the Keystone Republican Club, one thing that I found that I think is incredibly important and very timely, considering we just finished the 2020 census. So at the turn of the century, 1899 going into 1900, as they were preparing for the census of 1900, the African-American men noticed that there was no line in the census that noted the African-American men who were eligible to vote. At that time, for the 1890 census, it would say foreign-born men who were eligible to vote, white men, and that was pretty much it. There wasn't a category for African-American men. So they were like, we need a category because we are a voting population who deserves to be counted and recognized. So these 200 African-American men rallied around City Hall and were standing out there and were like, hey, we want City Council, the mayor, to make sure that we can be included in the census. all of these things that are going around. They were changing the ways they were categorizing African Americans from color to Negro. All of those categories were kind of being readjusted, and the census doesn't operate like it did today. So census were kind of shaped around the state and like regional communities, which is why they like push so hard. So the newspaper talked about these 200 and some men that stand out there and was like fighting for representation in the census. So fast forward more than 100 years to 2017, 2016 maybe. I'm going through the newspapers, I'm looking through the census, I'm trying to figure out what the Black population looked like. And it showed in the census that there were 211 African-American men who were eligible to vote in the 1900 census. And that was important to me because the newspapers talked about how there was about 215 men that were down at City Hall, like rallying around this as being something. And an important part of this too is that it only categorized Lackawanna County. Well, was it Lackawanna County at the time? Yeah, it was Lackawanna County. So it said that there were 211 African-American men eligible to vote in the entire county. So that includes Jessup, that includes Oliphant, that includes Dunmore and all the other spaces of Lackawanna County. But all of those men were Scranton residents exclusively. So to me, that's important because if it wasn't for these 200 and some men who rallied around their representation, it would look like in 2021 that there were no men eligible to vote in Lackawanna County at all. So to me, that was significant, and it made me push harder for us to actually count ourselves in the census for the future and what it means for resources, and also what it means for the integrity of our Black community who fought so hard. And so when we stood at the steps of City Hall on Saturday, these are the things that I was thinking about. These are the stories that I wanted to tell to let people know the significance of why it's important that we stood out here. Because again, more than 100 years ago, our Black community was standing in those very spots fighting for just equal rights and representation. So these are just newspaper clips that kind of talk about the Black community and what they were doing and how they were, again, fighting for their right to vote and representation in the city and actually doing the work. And again, in the late 1800s into mid-century, things looked a lot different, especially at the turn of the century. We have pretty much three categories of African Americans nationally, but also in our community. We have African Americans who had escaped slavery and were now residents, free people in the city of Scranton. You have African Americans who were never enslaved. We had African Americans who were first generation free people. And also at this like industrial space, Scranton had a lot of booming economies, from the coal mines to manufacturing to milling. All of these things are happening here. And one important thing is African Americans were pretty much left out of all those industries. So most Black people in the city of Scranton were working in like the domestic sphere, day laborers, things like that, weren't able to get like substantial occupations. However, we did have Black leaders. We did have some Black excellence here, like George W. Brown and like James E. Foster, who I will talk about in a little bit, who some of you already know. This newspaper clipping I thought was really interesting. It is from 1925, and it talks about how the voting was being swayed in certain places. So for example, so one thing that was really interesting is that when African Americans were going to the polls in the early 1900s, when they would walk into the polls in the city of Scranton, people would come up to them and be like, hey, here, I will walk you through the vote. Like, ballots were pretty much written at the time, I believe. So they would be like, hey, I will fill out your ballot for you and just do it. So a lot of people were accustomed to going into your polling place and someone voting for, not really voting for you, but like voting on your behalf, so to speak. And Black voters over in West Side realized that that wasn't happening so much, but was happening downtown. And so they were kind of like, yo, like, what is up with that? We can vote on our own. We don't need other people to like hold our hands through this process. So they were fighting back on that and being able to literally cast your own vote for yourself. So lots of interesting things. These are two women, different eras, but also very central to Black women leadership in the city of Scranton. Both of them are my idols. Both of them are fabulous women. The one on the left, that is Mrs. Early Bergen, who was active during the civil rights movements in the 50s and 60s. And on the right, we have Mrs. George W. Brown. She took over George W. Brown's business in 1926 when he passed away and made the business more successful. G.W. Brown Drain Company is like a trucking and hauling company. Think like a U-Haul. They would like pack people's homes up and move things around. They would do commercial sorts of jobs, but they were up and down the East Coast, very successful. And some of the monuments in the courthouse square, the materials for those were moved by this Black-owned trucking and hauling company, little known fact. So Mrs. Bergen, who is on the left-hand side, she actually brought a group of African Americans down to the March on Washington to see Dr. Martin Luther King do his, famous "I Have a Dream" speech and participate in that. So that's really cool and kind of pretty iconic. She did a lot of work with the Progressive Center to make sure that kids also are being educated. And again, she was one of the main women fighting for fair and equal housing in the 50s and 60s when they were pushing the Black community further out of Central City and trying to create better housing, which turned into more public housing structures like Midtown Apartments and Washington Plaza right off of Adams Avenue in North Washington. So she was doing a lot of work to fight for Black rights. Both of these women were. So I just wanted to highlight them really quick. Oops.
Common Knowledge is a local
Okay.
Black history series by the Black Scranton Project.
Not yet. Okay. Let me go back. All right, so yes, the next slide I wanted to get into is our Uncommon Knowledge series, and it's about 11 minutes. So I think we have enough time to show this. Basically, it's going to be 3 segments talking about 3 figures in the Scranton area that I would love to introduce you all to. I think they are fabulous and their stories deserve to be highlighted and talked about and put on a pedestal, especially during Black History Month. So without further ado, this is the Uncommon Knowledge series by the Black Scranton Project, created by myself. Let me know if you can hear this properly. Okay.
Common Knowledge is a local Black history series by the Black Scranton Project, which highlights noteworthy figures and moments unique to Scranton's African American experience. These are stories we recovered from a forgotten past that deserve to be shared and celebrated. Today, as we navigate the racialized impact of COVID-19 and the demand for racial justice and equity by the Black Lives Movement, we felt this individual's legacy was too inspiring and too timely. It's only right that Dr. James E. Foster kicked off this series. James E. Foster studied at Yale University and received his doctorate in medicine from Howard University in 1903. He practiced for some time in Harrisburg before he moved to Scranton a few years later. He had a private practice and offices in downtown Scranton. Dr. Foster had an impressive 35-year career in the field of medicine. He was one of the city's leading doctors during the 1918 flu pandemic. The 1918 flu pandemic infected 500 million people worldwide and resulted in 50 million deaths around the globe, 675,000 of which were American. But while viruses don't discriminate, people do. And in cities across the nation, Black people struck by the flu were often left to fend for themselves. In the winter of 1918, an entire family fell ill with the virus. A household of 10 and only the 11-year-old daughter who evaded the virus had to take care of the large family. According to the Scranton Tribune, Dr. Foster was, quote, called to give treatment. The family was practically penniless, but the local physician supplied medicine, paying for it out of his own pocket, end quote. Although infection rates were much less than African Americans during the 1918 pandemic, it still overwhelmed their medical and public health resources. Racist theories claiming biological inferiority of Black people affected the quality of care in medicine, which increased their susceptibility to disease and illnesses. Black physicians, Dr. James E. Foster included, fiercely contested such theories and stressed that African American health disparities reflected socioeconomic inequalities, not physiological and biological differences or inferiority. National Negro Health Week was created in 1915, and it was the largest and most significant campaign that focused on educating Black communities throughout America on methods of acquiring healthcare and informing students on proper healthcare practices. Dr. Foster is the reason why National Negro Health Week was recognized in our city. He was leading conversations and advocating for programs that support the health and wellness of Black people, not just in Scranton, but throughout Northeastern Pennsylvania. In fact, Dr. Foster was a chairman of the National Negro Health Commission. He organized, facilitated, and oversaw many of the programs that took place across the region. Dr. James E. Foster was our city's first Black doctor who was saving lives in the midst of a national health crisis and was successful at it, and was praised for having, quote, the lowest death rate of any doctor in the city. In addition to being on the front lines of a global pandemic, he often spoke publicly and unapologetically about racial inequalities and inequities that disenfranchised Black Scrantonians. Dr. Foster wanted to build a foundation for our Black community. He was one of the folks, more than a century ago, that believed in the importance of creating spaces for Black people. In fact, it was his idea to create a Black Community Center, the Progressive Civic and Recreation Association, better known as the Progressive Center today. Dr. Foster passed away in August of 1949 at the age of 69. He loved the city of Scranton and invested a lot of time, energy, and his own resources to ensure that Black Scrantonians could thrive in all aspects of life for generations to come. Downtown Scranton looked very different in the 1930s. Do you see the Hotel Casey on the right? It was built in 1909 and it was once the largest hotel in northeastern Pennsylvania. It had 11 floors and 250 rooms. Although many Black residents were employed staff here, African American travelers were not allowed to lodge. Before the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination by private business owners, establishments like the Hotel Casey had the right to deny accommodations to Black people. But guess what? We had a Black-owned hotel, and it was pretty popping. The Newport Hotel opened in 1906 on the 300 block of Center Street between Penn and Wyoming Avenue. The hotel was, quote, famed for being one of the best hotels for colored people in the state, according to regional newspapers. The entire block, though, was demolished some decades ago to make way for new construction. Now, the Electric City parking garage consumes the whole block and no trace of our historic Black neighborhood exists. In the late 19th and early 20th century, the Black neighborhoods were tucked in the courts and alleys of downtown Scranton. For a long time, downtown Scranton was home to the majority of the African American community, and Center Street was literally the center of Black entertainment and leisure. Local newspapers called the Newport Hotel headquarters to local and visiting Black folks. The Newport Hotel was owned by a man named Charles Susky Battle. He was born in Knoxville, Maryland in 1869, and he moved to Scranton when he was a teenager. He waited tables at a local diner until he had enough money to start his own business. Susky was a local legend, and we'll have to spotlight the rest of his story later. Anyway, the hotel had a cabaret with a Black jazz orchestra and entertainers. The excitement often didn't kick off until after midnight, and before Prohibition, the drinks flowed, the music bumped, cigars burned, and Black folks partied into the morning. The Scranton Times in 1912 had an op-ed that said this, quote, his hotel accommodates the traveled coloring theatrical man, the sporting man, the prize fighter, the colored missionary, the stranger, and the native. And in his care, they receive every accommodation, protection, and courtesy that was possible. He made money in that place, but he gave as he made, and instead of dying wealthy, he died rich only in the esteem of his race, end quote. After Charles Battle passed away in 1912, his wife carried on the business for about a year before retiring with the obligations of hotel management. She sold the hotel to two local African-American men, William Hopkins and Walter Scott. The two new owners had plans to make over the hotel and bring it up to 1913 standards. They upgraded the exterior. The front facade was now constructed of an appealing brick. The basement was supposedly transformed into a billiard room and barber shop. The first floor was a general office, reading room, and cafe, a dining room on the second floor, sleeping rooms on the third, and a meeting and ballroom on the top floor. Prohibition proved too much for the hotel. On New Year's Eve in 1923 would be the last night that the Newport Hotel would offer entertainment and leisure to Black Scrantonians and the Black travelers that needed a place to stay while in the Electric City. The Newport Hotel was forced to close its doors January 1st of 1924, and the iconic Center Street Hotel was swiftly transformed into a storeroom for the Cleland Simpson Company, the proprietors of the Globe Store warehouse. money don't really make me whole. The magazine covers drenched in gold. The dreams of granny and mansion and happy. The little things I need to save my soul. And I know the money don't really make me whole. The magazine covers drenched in gold. The dreams of granny and mansion and happy. The little things I need to save my soul. Who am I, gypsy rap? Gypsy need her dollar back and all of that. My devil's only closer when I call him back. Lick her in the limelight, lick her in the limelight with fine wine and ecstasy. You can have the rest of me. Basket case, silhouette, cigarette, internet. Check my Twitter page for something holier than Black Death. Who am I, gypsy black? The vacancy of Hallelujah. Me hollow in my interviews. Me only wearing tennis shoes to clubs with dress codes, cause they clubs. Everything is everything, me no name. Doing cocaine, me missing brother Mike like something heavy. Me heart just wasn't ready. I wish I was a kid again. When the sun is going down, when the dark is out to stay, I picture your smile like it was yesterday. When the sun is going down, when the dark is out to stay, I picture your smile like it was yesterday. When I remember memories don't last forever. When I deny my empty with an open letter, who gon' remember me? My satellite, my empathy, the wheels be chrome, spiffy, the Lord with me. My halo said goodbye and the floor hit me. Felt a lining in a pine box, my granny filled the time slot. Don't grow up too soon, don't blow the candles out, don't let them cops get you. My granny almost sparrow, I can see wings. The choir sings, and Nana came out, da 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 da. Only he can save my soul. And I know the money don't really make me whole. The magazine covers drenched in gold. The dreams of granny and mansion and happy. The little things I need to save my soul. When the sun is going down, when the dark is out to stay, I picture your smile like it was yesterday. When the sun is going down, when the dark is out to stay, I picture your smile like it was yesterday. When the sun is going down.
This part is a little hard to read, so.
I picture your smile like it was yesterday. When the sun is going down, when the dark is out to stay, I picture your smile like it was yesterday.
That is Uncommon Knowledge for the Black Scranton Project. And yeah, I hope to create more.
Uncommon Knowledge is a local.
Okay. I hope to create way more stories to the series. I have a few in production. So as soon as I get a little bit more time to create them, I'm excited to add them to this. But those are the first three. And yeah, I just wanted to share them with you all. I feel like any opportunity to amplify their stories, I take advantage. So I figured during Black History Month and during this event, and especially Dr. Foster to share with the medical school, I wanted to definitely do that. So thank you guys for being one of the first groups to screen this. And I will open it up to questions now. I can stop sharing my screen. So yeah, thank you guys for allowing me to show you that.
Thank you so much for the presentation and the sneak peek of what you got going on in the works. And like Glennis said, this is the time for question and answers. So anybody, if you have a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself and speak or throw a question into the chat and we'll read it off for you.
Good afternoon, Glennis. This is Arthur Brees. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for that. That was very well done. And this morning I had the opportunity, I was listening to a show in terms of the cumulative disadvantage that has happened to African Americans. And just by the government instituting the GI Bill, which many African Americans could not attain because their neighborhoods were either green lined or red lined. And many of them would say no coloreds allowed. And your Black Scranton project, in terms of the film, reminds me of this region. There was a street called Lincoln Street in Wilkes-Barre, and that was the only street that African Americans could live on. And so I remember my great grandmother attempting to purchase when her husband came home from the war, and he wasn't entitled. So finally they had fought, and I am now living in the house that they had purchased many, many years ago. But this was not in the region of where the GI Bill was authorized. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And then the other fact I thought was very interesting is that many Black women were domesticated workers. And unfortunately, because they were domesticated, which my grandmother and mother were, they weren't entitled to Social Security for so many years. So their Social Security was impacted, hence their Medicare benefits and everything else. And so I think it's really critical for people to really understand that, because that really tells the story of why we are where we are at this particular time. Thank you.
Thank you. And also thanks for the insight about Lincoln Street, because currently right now, because we're also a small team, I focus on on Scranton specifically, but there are stories that I have archived from Wilkes-Barre and wanting to know more about the Wilkes-Barre area. So thank you for that. I've put that in my notes to check out in the archives later.
Awesome.
I just wanted to, oh, sorry. I just wanted to say thank you as well, Glennis. I am a first generation American, but I grew up in Scranton my entire life. I went to Scranton High School, and a lot of this information that you're sharing through your project, Black people in this community do not know that there's so much history. So I really did appreciate your presentation and the video, and I look forward to more. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. And I have some stories of first generation Black Americans in Scranton doing some incredible things. So I look forward to sharing that, and you'll definitely enjoy those stories as well. So, and thank you guys all for the nice comments in the chat. I see them.
Good afternoon. I have a question regarding the Black community's efforts to preserve the historical sites or the historical events that took place in Scranton. So do you know of such efforts and endeavors and of prominent figures who worked to do this?
Do I know of more prominent figures who wanted to do this?
Yes, in Scranton, who worked to preserve the history and record the history of the Black community in Scranton.
Yeah, so these folks, especially the ones that I highlighted in the Uncommon Knowledge series, that was pretty much their main goal. They were pretty much dedicated to creating the foundation for the Black community, creating businesses, like really applying pressure for policies that created equality in the city. But every step of the way, as we can see, a lot of these Black businesses don't continue to have a legacy. A lot of the homes that were owned by Black folks are now destroyed. A lot of the businesses don't even exist anymore, and those buildings are gone. A few of them were actually on Lackawanna Avenue, where now the mall is. Surrounding areas, like I said, Center Street was literally the hub for Black community. Now it's pretty much empty. The only business we have there really is a Dezo. The rest of it is parking lots and just empty alley. So there's a lot of systematic ways that they pretty much, the city erased the Black community and dispersed them further out. So that is my next big project, to kind of prove that that happened, versus people just saying like, oh no, they chose to move away. Black folks didn't want to stay here. Black folks this, blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, that is part of the story. But the other part of the story is that there was a community here that loved the city and wanted to create generational roots and a generational legacy that was torn down at literally every turn. So yeah, that answers your question.
Hi.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So this was so well done and well put together. I really appreciate you putting the time. I was going to ask, if you don't mind, if you could kind of walk us through your process of how you get this information. And I know you mentioned you go to the archives, and kind of like how much labor goes into this, because I know it's not something that, you just do within like a few weeks. I feel like it's a lot of work. So if you don't mind sharing with us the process.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is a long process. A lot of the stories that I find actually come from old newspapers, and newspapers.com is a resource that is super valuable. They have obviously different tiers, like the paid tier, the pro. So I pay for the premier package to look at all the newspapers across the country. So basically what that allows you to do is type in like keywords, locations, and newspapers, and like everything's cached. So if I type in like Negro community, right? And then look through Scranton papers, I can find where that word is popping up. And so I'll do a lot of work like that. So I'll spend hours every day, pretty much. I love to look at the old newspaper. So every day I'll like go in and look at a few papers, or like see what they were doing during like MLK celebrations and stuff. So my main resource right now, and has been for the past few years, is newspapers.com, because it allows you to look at all of these newspapers in a faster way. That's not to say you don't have to still read and you don't have to use discretion, but that is one of my biggest things. When the archives were open, I would go down to the state library and look at stuff there, because there's a lot of microfilm. There's things that you can't take with you. You have to like be there for, which I kind of miss, because I know there's things that I'm like now wanting to see, but I cannot because they will not let me in for anything. But yeah, newspapers has been my favorite resource. I have read way more newspapers 100 years ago than now. I know all the happenings in the city, like down to potholes were still a terrible thing, even in the 1870s. They're like, my horse and buggy, my tire just like busted out because these roads are trash. And I'm like, hey, 2021, nothing has changed, y'all. So that's really interesting to see like cultural trends in the city and like kind of how things are similar. So yeah, that's usually what I do. And like you said, it's that this doesn't just fall in my lap. I just can't download it from the cloud into my brain and create these stories. A lot of the times I'll, for example, if I'm looking up Louise Tanner Brown, I know she would do a lot of things during like Christmas time or whatever. So I'll just like type in her name and see what she's up to. And because she was pretty well known in the community, they would talk about her in the papers. But one thing that's more fascinating is like the New York Age was more of a Black publication in New York City, and they would have a whole section for Scranton and what the Black community would do, right? So I'll look in that paper a lot, and it would be like, Louise Tanner Brown had a dinner party. She invited X, Y, and Z from New York City, and they're having, Bethel AME Church is doing their annual Christmas Jubilee or whatever. And so that's where I get a lot of information. Or so-and-so opened a new business, or the Newport Hotel is closing down. So I'm like, wait, what? So then I would go and like look for there. So it's always a lot of rabbit holes. It's always a lot of rabbit holes. I'll be working on one story, and then 3 hours later, I find someone else who's incredible. And now I'm just like stuck on them and trying to figure it out, know where they were born, all those things. So in order for me to create these, I find what works best is to just go down these rabbit holes. And then I'll just kind of go back and say like, okay, I have this. Can I create a story where I can kind of capture who they were or what they were doing? So those three pieces that I presented to you, I felt like I can present their story in a way that can give you kind of the scope of like the time period that they lived in, and a little bit about who they were and what they were doing. Because there are a lot of stories that I don't have completed, that I don't feel comfortable enough yet to be like, here's their story, because I know people are going to take and run with it. And I'm very, very protective over these stories, and making sure that myself and the Black Scranton Project tells them in a way that gives them integrity and is done so appropriately by Black voices. Because every time we do have the stories of these folks, it was written by white people. And what we do see, this is the last point I'll say, in the newspapers, you do have to use discretion, because what I did notice, the way they talk about the Black community is not how they talk about other people. For example, going back to like Bethel AME's like church Christmas special, right? Bethel AME Church will be doing this Christmas, special, whatever you call it for a church. And then like St. Patrick's Cathedral has their Black or their Christmas pageant, right? So the reporters will go to both. They will go to St. Patrick's Cathedral and they'll be like, oh my gosh, like, look at this. They sang these hymns and this person sang and this person said this and these are all the words and here's all the quotes. Go to Bethel, same idea. They're like, there was 4 people who spoke. Then the choir sang Negro spirituals. And then Louise Tanner Brown got up and read some poetry. Like, doesn't say exactly what it was, misspell their names. And it's just kind of a way that we see that they didn't even give them the space in the papers. Like, I can't even go back and say, which Negro spirituals? Were they Negro spirituals or were they also just hymns that they sang in a way that gave it more soul and you're just calling it Negro spirituals, right? So that is something that kind of sucks because I can't then go back and kind of figure out like what they were reading or looking into. There are ways that I can do it now. And a lot of, like I said, Louise was one person who they did talk about. So I know more of what she's doing, but definitely the disparities in the newspapers and how they talked about the Black community and the language they use is not always good. And as a person of color, you can sense that, and which is why I like going through the papers, because then I can rewrite our history and say, this isn't actually how it happened. Like, this is why they were gathering here. This is why they were saying what they were saying. They weren't there just to like cause a ruckus downtown. No, they were saying this because we live in the slums and it's not fair. So long story short, that's kind of what I do.
Thank you.
And yeah, I agree with you, Dr. Sapp. It is very important that we understand who is telling these narratives. And I've turned down features with news conglomerates, especially for this month, where they're like, hey, can we do a special about Louise Tanner Brown? And I tell them, I'm not very comfortable with that. And they're just like, oh, well, why? Like this and that. So number one, it will live with your newspaper and you'll have the rights around that story. And 2, like, again, I haven't completely finished her biography. And 3, like, I'm very sensitive about how we tell these stories. And I don't feel comfortable with then like other spaces being like, look what we found, when really I spent years trying to articulate her story and I'm doing it for you, for me to have no rights and nothing else to it. And for me, I just feel like Louise has already told me that I have the ability to tell her story and decline not to tell her story, because for decades nobody wanted to talk about her, right? So for me, it's just like, no, I'll wait until I present it first, and then I will share the book or the post or the little stories about it for you guys later. I think one thing I do really want to share with Black creatives and Black scholars and stuff is, yes, we're always really excited to share our work, but definitely take the time to think about how you're presenting it and who you're presenting it to, because a lot of times our intellectual labor is taken from us and stolen from us, and it's done in new ways where we don't necessarily notice it. I've been definitely paying more attention to this idea of digital colonialism and how people take the works of Black creatives and then change them into something that looks like that they've done it. So I've experienced that myself, and so I've been extra protective over these stories and how I present them, and which is why I'm working on getting this series out so people can share stuff that we have already published and is shareable for the community. So just as something moving forward, as you guys are in the medical space and will be doing your own research and things, definitely protect it and be careful about who you share your things with. Not saying you shouldn't, but definitely pay attention to who's asking you and how they ask you.
Could I ask a question? Hi, I'm Bill Jeffries, and thank you so much. This was a really great talk, and I really appreciated to hear the stories. But speaking of stories, I was wondering if you've ever tracked down any of the people who lived in Scranton at the time or their immediate descendants and heard their stories directly, or is there an archive you can go to hear oral histories about what's happened in Scranton and other places in Northeast Pennsylvania?
So I definitely want to do that. There is no archive of oral histories besides the one that I'm trying to put together for Black Scranton. And I definitely, there's so many times where I want to search for like Louise's family and find out if they're around. I do know that she does have a few descendants that are around, but that is like, genealogy literally is its own study. And if I do that, that'll literally just take me down it's a big project. So the short answer is no, I haven't. Do I want to? Yes. Will I? Hopefully get to. And as we expand on the Black Scranton Project, have different committees and teams and volunteers that want to do the research, I'm so excited to have like groups of people and students that want to start uncovering this work and creating an archive of family history. And we'll be opening our Center for Arts and Culture soon, which will house our archive. And I'm really interested in protecting and collecting and saving family heirlooms, including like photo albums and stuff like that, because why not? I know the Irish community and Italian communities, they have like their like archive of family heirlooms and things. And I would love to do that here, because a lot of times people just get rid of photos and albums because they think that they're useless. And I love them. I'm like, let me go into your grandmother's attic, please. I'll take them. I don't care who they are. Maybe I'll find out. If not, it's just beautiful for me to see pictures of African-American Black people in the city of Scranton from all different decades, just living their lives, because we never see that in terms of Scranton. We never see pictures of Black folks literally just eating ice cream at some ice cream stand, going to Rocky Glen, like doing all the things that residents in the area do. We don't have images of that. And so I want them because I know they're there. The weddings, the backyard picnics, the graduations, all that, I want them. So, you know, if you don't know what to do with those duplicates, give them to me. Give them to the Black Scranton Project.
Glynis and Bill Jeffries, in Wilkes-Barre, Edgar Patience wrote a book. And so there is a lot of oral history in Wilkes-Barre, along with Mrs. Barnes. And then last, I wanted to let you know, Glynis, I have thousands of pictures. And when I talk about thousands, probably maybe 10,000 pictures of Black history in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So if you're ever interested, you can come down and look at them. I certainly could share them. In fact, my great-grandmother founded the first storefront church in Wilkes-Barre, which was a Pentecostal church.
We will definitely connect.
I have two questions. So, based on your research, what are the distinguishing features of the culture of the Scranton Black community? And my second question is, how did they do economically compared to the other areas of Pennsylvania? Were they better economically or not so?
So the first part of your question, I would say that there was integrity there, but again, there was a lot of resistance for the Black community, as we can see. A lot of folks left. A lot of folks had businesses and took them to Philadelphia or New York City. And then there were some folks who stayed. In terms of the Black community and how they were similar to the other spaces, I feel like Black culture is like transcends boundaries. So the Black community was very similar to the Black community in Philadelphia, very similar to the Black communities in New York and New Jersey. Why? We had a rail system that would go directly to connect all of these spaces, passenger trains. So again, to word of mouth, we know the Black community connects with each other. We know where each other is at because we asked. So they knew there was a hotel, you can stay there, there's a community. So the folks that were moving on through from Philadelphia or further down to New York City or wherever else, they're coming through Scranton, they could stay here or all those things. So I say all that to say, the Black community was very parallel to those other communities. Also, the Black community here was friends with famous Black folks from around the country, such as Jack Johnson. Actually, Jack Johnson was friends with Susky Battle, and the Scranton legend is he got Jack Johnson into his professional, famous boxing career. Little do a lot of people know, Jack Johnson actually lived in Scranton for a couple of years and worked at the Newport Hotel for Susky Battle, which is part of his story that I want to continue to tell because I think it's fascinating. Dr. James E. Foster was good friends with Joe Louis, another boxer, who would come to Scranton and hang out with him and stay at his house and stay at the hotels here. So a lot of famous Black folks stayed in Scranton and had friends with Black Scrantonians, including Paul Laurence Dunbar, who is one of the earliest, most famous poets, Black poets, was friends with Mrs. Louise Tanner Brown. And Louise was a huge fan of his poetry, would write his poetry even after he passed away and things. So there are a lot of famous Black folks who came and were friends with Black Scrantonians. So again, that is incredible to me. And I really do think if the powers that be didn't crush the Black community, we would have a Black community and Black residency that's similar to like Pittsburgh, Black community and Black history, and Philadelphia and all those things. It almost happened. It literally almost happened. People were coming here all the time. In terms of neighboring spaces, the Underground Railroad connects northeastern Pennsylvania, Scranton included, but Waverly was a space where there was a refuge community of fugitive slaves that ended up in Waverly via the Underground Railroad and through the Civil War. Some of them were war veterans that ended up there. What we do know is there is not even any Black residents in Waverly now. Why? Even then, they weren't really part of the community. They lived on a separate part of Carbondale Road. And a lot of those folks, there wasn't really much like work opportunities there. So those residents in Waverly were going to Scranton because there was at least work there, not the best work all the time, but there was more opportunities and also a community where they can be amongst. So yeah, all that was happening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johns, for everything that you've
Yeah,
given.
thank
The
you.
question and answer session has been amazing. We still have a little over 10 minutes left for this session. So if you guys still have any more questions, please feel free to unmute, ask, or speak in the chat about it.
And Mr. Breeze said Muhammad Ali and Leon Spinks lived in the Poconos. I wouldn't be surprised. And Muhammad Ali actually came to Scranton a few times. I actually posted a picture of him in Scranton with some residents like on our Instagram page last year, I think. So you'd have to scroll a little bit, but that was pretty cool. Any other questions for me?
I was gonna say at this point, if no one questions, do you have any final remarks that you'd like to leave with us, Ms. Johns?
I will just say thank you guys again for having me. I love working with Geisinger. I love working with the medical school. I think all of you guys are fabulous and fantastic. Keep going for it. Black Scranton supports you. I love to see all of these Black and brown medical students here. As a native Black Scrantonian myself, it's always exciting to know that you guys are out here and are here. And I know it's not easy to be here. We know there's still a lot of racism, there's still a lot of resistance to, and a lot of anti-Blackness here, which I'm sure each of you guys have your own stories and experiences. So just so you guys know, I support you, I celebrate you, and the Black Scranton Project is here for you. So thank you guys for all that you do, and I'm excited to see you all become successful in the medical field. And don't forget the little people, okay?
Thank you so much for your help. One last thing before we all go, I'm just gonna turn it over to Ms. Faith Bansa to give us our closing remarks for the end of today.
Thank you, Richard. I'd just like to thank everybody for coming today. I'd like to thank Ms. Glennis Johns for joining us and for educating us. Really quickly, Justin, if you could be so kind to announce the winners in the chat box. Winners, you'll be receiving an email from Dr. Sapp to select your mask, and then it will be mailed to you into our office. And I'll just go over really briefly the upcoming events and encourage you to attend them. Please make sure you register. We're going to be having our own Dr. Daryl McBride and Dr. Rhonda Daly tomorrow at noon, race, culture, and generational trauma in medicine. Next slide, please. And then we will be having on Friday, February 19th, Dr. Ijeoma Opara, Physician Activism in the Era of COVID and Africans in the Diaspora Cultural Bazaar. Next slide, please. And then the Black Scranton Project has a couple of programs coming up. We will be having the speaker, Dr. Alexia Norwood, and that will be on the 12th, Black Health Matters, Hypertension is More Than a Number. Next slide, please. Then another event will be having a series of events February 18th to 20th, all from 4 to 6 p.m. We'll be having Black Men in White Coats, the documentary series screening. Please be sure to join us for one of them. And then on Monday, February 22nd, the GCSOM will be having their Black His and Her Story game night. And then we'll close off on Thursday, February 25th with Black Health Matters, the overview of breast and colon cancer by Miss Diana Calendar. I hope everybody can join us for some of the future events. Thank you again, Glennis. Thank you again to everybody at the School of Medicine, Dr. Sapp, Mr. Arthur Breeze, Priscilla, everybody in bold. That's all we have for you today.
Thank you so much for having me again. Happy Black History Month, everybody.